2 minutes of Torah. This year is entitled In Memory of Joe Frohlich ZT Livrocha. Joe Frohlich, of course, father of our beloved, dear member, Dov Frohlich, should live and be well. We knew Joe in the community, but not how more we knew him. He'd be over every few weeks, a month or so. He'd be for Shabbat by us, Yom Tovim by us. Always a wonderful presence in our shul, in our community. A certain regal look that he had to him, a presence just being there. Even if we didn't get to speak to him that much and see him, just having him there was very special. And together with that stately appearance, he'd always have the cute little treats for the kids. So he had that sweetness as well that he brought to the community. But we didn't know him that well. We knew him from just seeing him there, having him daven with us, giving the treats out to the kids. When he would get and receive an aliyah, it was a special moment as well. He would lean all the way down, almost get so close to the Torah that he could kiss the Torah itself and stay in that position while he said the bracha, looking to the side, because Chazal say not supposed to be looking as if you're reading from the Torah, so people know the brachot are not in there. He'd look to the side, but he'd be so mechubar, so close to the Torah. But honestly, I just saw someone who loved Torah, who was close to the Torah, loved the tefillah, and loved the tzibur, and added so much to the tzibur. I didn't really know that much about him. A visitor that would come every few weeks and be with us a few times during the year and be mezaka us and give us the privilege of hosting him. But over the last few weeks, about 7 weeks ago, he's diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which is a hidden cancer, and just usually it's discovered when it's already at stage 4 and it's just too late to do anything. So over the last 7 weeks, we got to hear more about Joe. And then during the Shiv'ah, we really saw more and more information and hearing the stories. I got a fuller picture of who was Joe Frohlich, Zichrono Livracha. So we already had a little bit of a taste from him over the last 17, 18 years, if not more. Then we got to see some more. Whether it was at just hearing that once he found out 7 weeks ago that that's it, the pancreatic cancer looked for a few days, is anything to do, operation, chemo, and the answer was no, it's just too far gone. He said, that's it, I want to die in Jerusalem. He was calm, he understood what was going on, he had no denial of the reality, he accepted it. This was Ratzon Hashem. Hashem's will is for me to die now. Let me die in the holy city of Yerushalayim, move to hospice care in Hadass, in Ma'atzar Tzofim, and accepted it. And when I went to see him there, the Frohlich children, grandchildren were there 24/7. I happened to be there one moment in between when they were all there. There was someone there. I said, who are you? It wasn't from the film that I recognized. And a young lady named Julie. And it turned out that the Frohlichs had a son who passed away years ago. And he wasn't a little baby. He was a young married man. And to me, that's all part of the testimony to the greatness of the Frohlichs, because they just kept going on with life. Sometimes life, Hashem throws us curveballs that we cannot understand, we cannot fathom. And many people just continue life, but you just see it all over them. They can't continue in any normal way, and I understand that. It's who could judge? But the Frohlich somehow kept going. And who was this Julie? She was married to their son, Zichrono Livracha. And here, 25 years later, coming to pay her respects for Joe. She kept in touch with them. He made such an impact on her life so many decades ago, and it was way too short a time that they were in a family together, but there was such an impact that Joe and Mrs. Frohlich made on her. And there's still a connection, even though she finished her mourning 2 decades ago and she remarried years later and started her own family, but still Joe had a special place in her life. So I had those few moments to talk to her. The way she described him, what an unbelievable person he was. And then that was over the last few weeks, beginning to hear more and more about him. And then I hear about his early life in Baltimore, learning TA in Baltimore 60 years ago. And his chevra was at the cemetery, the funeral together. 5, 6 of them know each other for over half a century. What a chevra, learned together and stayed connected to each other. He was learning there. He also had the amazing zechut of learning with a Gadol Hador of Gustman, sort of a bit of a hating Gadol Hador, but he was so great with Gustman when he was in Europe. As a young man, 18, 19, the story goes that the Chafetz Chaim stood up for Rav Gustman. Chafetz Chaim was an old man already, stood up for Rav Gustman, who was 20, barely. So Rav Gustman was a hating Gadol Hador, and Joe had the zechut to learn under him in Netzach Yisrael. And he remembered what he learned. He was telling us during the Shiva that Joe would go visit his yeshiva. He would talk to the Rebbe, Dov, how he's learning. He'd talk to Dov about the learning, the Steigen, and would make sure that Dov was really on top of things. And even once said they were learning the Sugi and Baba Batra, and Joe heard the way they were learning. He said, "Well, I learned in the yeshiva from Gustman a little bit differently." That he was still holding in the Sugi and the topic decades later. He's a serious Ben Torah. And then at the funeral, hearing Rav Hershko was the Shlita, Talmid Chacham, a great leader in Klal Yisrael, the Rav of the Shul, head of Bar Ilan. He was in the Knesset a few years ago. But when he was speaking at the funeral, it wasn't Rav Hershkowitz, the head of the big shul. It wasn't Rav Hershkowitz, the dean of Bar Ilan, the former Knesset member. That's one who was speaking. It was a friend, a dear friend of Joe Frohlich. That's who was speaking. You could feel the connection they had to each other. And finally, the reason there was such a great connection that Rav Hershkowitz and so many others had, because there was a lot of hidden great work that Joe was involved in. Tremendous chesed. Orator for Bar Ilan University, for the 929 project. The Rav came, the head of the 929 project, to the Tanakh project, spreading Tanakh to hundreds of thousands of Jews worldwide. So Joe was involved in that, getting it off the ground, being involved and helping it out in any way he could. He used all his incredible talents that he brought in from the States. Sonal, 40 years ago, found him in the States and brought him over to help manage the company. Very talented person. So he used that, of course, to help out his family, put bread on the table, of course, to help a company in Eretz Yisrael, finance to help them balance themselves out, and he used his talent for chesed in so many different areas, more than we can ever know. So on the one hand, it's such a tragic loss. 76, it's a young man in our society. On the other hand, what a legacy he has left behind him. And the more we've heard about it in the last few weeks, the more we get to see what a great man, and the more we realize what a loss. But a little bit of the chama is just seeing the family, his wife, such a regal lady. Even during the Shiva, you see a great, great woman. And seeing the children, the grandchildren. Each one is a star in our community. So the loss was a tragic one. I wish we had until 120 with Joe, but to know that the legacy is continuing. The children, the grandchildren, we have Hashem, the great-grandchildren, our future generations, where they had this model of a father and a grandfather to go in and show them the connection to the Masorah, and that they could pass on the Masorah to future generations. That's a nechama. In Yetz Hashem, may the entire Frohlich and all the extended family have nechama. May Hashem console them. Min Hashamayim. Shalom.